There are many Catholics today, and I mean more than just a few, who do not believe in the existence of Satan. At the same time, there are many who do not believe in the existence of hell. And if they do believe, they cannot imagine anyone being there. Given my years of working with people who struggle with personal sins, I can assure you that I have experienced more than a few people whose lives have already become a living hell. One of the characteristics that seems most apparent in people who are in a living hell is the pervasive presence of an inner rage that consumes them. Along with this disposition, they become mistrustful, isolated, and in a great deal of inner pain. They fall into a despair. They cannot imagine God loving them personally. Eventually, this despair can turn into a rage directly aimed at God. As this hell begins to take over their lives, they become more self-destructive in a variety of different ways, such as drugs, alcohol, sex, or suicide. Now, while I do believe many of these behaviors have a psychological basis, I am more convinced than ever that it is a mistake to draw a clean line between human psychological destruction and a person's spiritual destruction. Just as the presence of true joy and peace in our lives gives us a taste of the blessedness of heaven, so too our inner rage and self-destructive behavior prefigures the darkness of hell. A number of years ago, I was sitting down with another priest, and he had some horrible symptoms I just mentioned, and more. His spiritual life was non-existent, and he was acting out in ways that were grossly contrary to the Christian life and to his vocation, and he was getting worse. He expressed no intention of changing his life. Finally, I looked at him and said, "You're going down the wrong path." He knew exactly what I meant. Satan is an enraged being. He is consumed with a pervasive inner rage. He's like the Gerasene demoniac in the scriptures who day and night screams and gashes himself with stones. This is the lot of those who are immersed in evil, never resting. Those engulfed in evil are tortured within and filled with an inner violence. And you can see the footprints of this evil throughout the world. Now, I admit there is much good all around us, and we need only open our eyes to see the beauty and the grace. But there is also much violence and evil, and it would be foolish for us to miss it. So how are we to fight these temptations? Well, the tradition of the church teaches us first and foremost, don't do it alone, for we will lose and lose quickly. Remember, it is in Christ alone, the God-man, who has conquered evil. It is through invoking his name and the intercession of the Virgin Mary that enables one to overcome the power of evil. You know, we priests, religious, diocesan, we can be a very independent lot. Now, that isn't a bad thing, because our ministerial lives require that we be self-starters. So often we must discern what needs to be done, and then we do it. However, when we have our own personal problems, we are usually our own worst enemies. At times we try to handle our struggles with evil on our own, and often our greatest challenge is our willingness to admit that we have a problem and to ask someone for help. We must look quickly and confidently to others for help. Whether we use the instruments of therapy, we do a 12-step program for healing from addiction, or we look to heaven for help in overcoming the lure of sin and evil, it is critical that we have the humility to realize that we cannot do it alone. On January 23, 1840, parishioners in Ars, France, overheard a conversation between the saintly Curé of Ars, St. John Vianney, who ironically is the patron of parish priests, and a woman who was possessed. A voice coming from the possessed woman said to St. John Vianney, "Without that whore," referring to Mary, "who is above, we should have you for certain, but she protects you. Together with that great dragon," referring to St. Michael, "who is at the door of your church." Why am I speaking to you on this topic? Because recently I saw in the Boston Globe the long lists of priests who have been charged in the last 5 years with inappropriate sexual behavior. I will admit that I quickly glanced at it and moved on, which was my way of facing such a painful reality. But then I went back, and I believe it was grace that caused me to do it. I went back and I carefully read the name of each one of those priests and the outcome of their situations. Many have died. Others have been laicized, become laymen. Some are in prison, and thanks be to God, several have been acquitted. Holding that painful reality of these priests in my heart and the memory of their names in my mind, I did what I should have done long ago. I prayed for these priests, both living and deceased. I handed each one of them by name to Mary, our Mother, who is and who will always be our refuge and our hope. They are my brothers. My brothers and sisters, if we think such days of priests battling with evil are over, we're mistaken. While we may not face evil in such explicit and conscious ways as St. John Vianney, our battle with evil is no less urgent and no less real. It is no small thing that Our Lady, when appearing at Lourdes or Fatima, at Guadalupe, and even now at Medjugorje, urges Christians everywhere to pray for her priest, not just our priest, but her priest, that they may be holy and seek her help when assailed by temptations or captives to evil. So I'm asking you in this novena, after this novena, to take up the challenge of praying for our priests, to pray the Memorare or the Hail Mary. I invite you to quietly pray for the priests that you know, especially any priest you may fear is struggling in any way, and keep praying for them. I just read in the New York Times that 22 new seminarians entered the National Seminary in Ireland. As we all know, Ireland has been suffering terribly from the scandal of sex abuse. And many Catholics have left the Catholic Church because of this scandal. And the church is on the verge of dying. And suddenly, 22 new seminarians enter the seminary in Dublin, Ireland. Now, this seems so small, but at a time when the Irish Church has been suffering from a wide range of abuses, this is a great sign of hope. It's a reinforcement of the words of Isaiah. God makes all things new. And Mary is our greatest hope. Pray to Mary for her priests.